Independence Plaza in front of the currently presidential palace. President Rafael Correa just spoke to the crowds, and this is a celebration of gains made under his government. Here with us is Minister of Culture Guillaume Long. Guillaume, why are citizens here in Independence Plaza defending the gains made under the government President Rafael Correa in the face of these destabilization attempts which we've seen in the past week?
I think this is, the good news is that over the last 8 years, the Ecuadorian people have learned to value democracy. We used to have a very unstable country, 7 presidents in 10 years between 1996 and 2006. And one of the great things of this political process, as well as reducing poverty, reducing inequality, massive redistribution, construction of infrastructure, economic growth, and a number of very positive things. But one of the greatest things has been that we've done all this through democracy. 10 electoral process, 10 elections over the last 8 years. Radical transformation, but always through democracy, through the will of the people. And today that we're facing this threat, this real threat of destabilization, with quite violent marches, a lot of plotting, a lot of strange political alliances in the opposition that make us fear the worst. It is fundamental, it is crucial that the people of Ecuador come here and celebrate democracy, you know, and enjoy and with smiles on their faces, no violence, with absolute pacifism, to harvest what we've sowed, democracy over the last 8 years. We're not going to allow more coups of the darker stages of the 20th century in these new ages of the 21st.
And how will the government continue reacting to these destabilization attempts, especially with the visit of Pope Francis to the country in 3 days?
I think 2 main ways. One, by standing firm, like this, no violence, but firm, present here, defending this very emblematic, symbolic plaza here in Ecuador, which is the plaza in front of the presidential palace, to defend our democracy. And we're going to be firm, and we're going to be there, and we're going to mobilize. A second way, which is very important, and it's been one of the key major announcements of the government and of the president over the last few days and weeks, is dialogue. Because we don't think that everybody who's marching in the opposition is committed with a coup. But we do think a lot of people are being manipulated, a lot of people are being conned, fooled, used by a small group of oligarchs who do want to destabilize democracy. And we have to go to these mainly middle classes with a discourse, with an exchange, with a dialogue, a meaningful dialogue, to convince them that we're trying to work in their best interest. There was no middle class in 2007. You had a very, very shrinking middle class, almost disappearing. You had very rich people and very poor people. What we've done over the last 8 years is create this middle class and allow people who were in the poorer sectors of society to enter this middle class. So it would make no sense whatsoever. It would be absolutely ridiculous, no political sense either, if suddenly out of the blue 8 years later we wanted to implement policies that prejudice these middle classes, that went against the fundamental interests of these middle classes. We have to convince these middle classes not to be used by a small group of oligarchs who will be affected by the new laws that we are proposing, because they have their bank accounts in Panama, because they have all their assets offshore, and because they've been managing through tax evasion and all sorts of unlawful policies this inheritance of wealth through many, many generations, I would say all the way since the 19th century.
Thank you, Guillaume. That was Guillaume Long speaking with us on why citizens are here defending the currently presidential palace and this process of the citizens' revolution. Celebrations will continue happening throughout the evening.